Greetings, everybody. We are back with another portfolio explainer video. This is an actual client's portfolio, a new client that came from another advisor. Now Pure is managing the assets. We like to do this because I think there's an illusion that just because someone has a professionally managed portfolio by another advisor, that their portfolio is dialed in. That's probably our biggest challenge, is the average consumer of financial services believes all advisors are the same. And I've said this before, back in the 1980s, that probably was more true. Now it is a dangerous conclusion. So approximately 90% of our clients come from other advisors, and I'm going to show you why in this video. So to protect identities, we're using my Lasso Opso Bush again. And if you want to see what Bush looks like, this is him just chilling. He's turns 10 in October, so he sleeps a lot. I mean, he's healthy. He's a good dog. He's full of energy. He's great with the kids. But this is what he does, I'd say 70% of the day. So this is Flophouse Bush. Bush just relaxing without a care in the world. Good for him. So I'm going to bounce around a little bit. Hopefully my screen and my mouse are tracking. But the first thing that I noticed with this account, and know that we have a taxable account, which the bulk of the assets are in. So this is about 1.8 million. Taxable account with over $1 million. A traditional IRA, actually a couple of those, more than one. So this is I'll get back to this in a second, but another taxable account and an inherited account. So inherited IRA, 3 traditional IRAs, 2 different taxable accounts. And right off the bat, you might be saying, at least I'm saying, why would you have 3 different traditional IRAs and 2 different taxable accounts? So one of the things that we really push on people when they come to us is just consolidating like accounts. And this is important as you get into retirement, taking RMDs, so your required minimum distribution out of your IRAs. If you have it across 5 different accounts, that could be a logistical nightmare. Calculating your RMD, capturing end-of-year account value, and then calculating and taking those funds. Also on the taxable front, each taxable account that you have will produce a 1099 at the end of the year. So the more accounts, the more tax documents, the more headaches. So if you like your CPA, you want to streamline your life and simplify your life in retirement, consolidate like accounts. That's the first thing. The second thing is, and again, these are all advisor managed accounts. So these were coming to us elsewhere. Another advisor was managing these accounts. This portfolio, this large taxable account, came from Fidelity, and you can see all of the Fidelity mutual funds. So this is a conflict of interest, right? Because Fidelity's charging a management fee. I don't know what it was. Let's say it's 1%, which is very common. They're capturing these embedded expense ratios as well. Okay, so they're double dipping. So they're getting the 1% plus the embedded expense ratio. And I just pulled up one of these. I'm going to blow this up a little bit. So this is one of the Fidelity funds. Which one is this? Fidelity Advisor Mid Cap 2 Fund. I don't even know what that means, but you can see, in addition to the advisor fee, they're getting hit with a expense ratio of 1.25%. Okay, and then they break down the fees here. But you know, you're paying 1%, another 1.25%, which again is not on your statement. You won't find it anywhere. It's a pretty big hurdle to jump over every year, 2.25%. And you can see, and I've touched on this before, that's just the fees that you're paying. Owning mutual funds in a taxable account is a cardinal sin. You are lighting money on fire. You are paying taxes that don't need to be paid, okay? Everybody has to pay taxes. No one said that you had to leave a tip. So do not leave a tip when you're paying taxes, because that is a drag on your net after tax returns. So right here, you can see capital gains history. So this fund in 2021, you can see these 2 entries here, this fund paid out to end investors $4.50 in capital gains. So if you owned 10,000 shares, which this person had a pretty large position in this fund, you can see 320,000. I don't know the price per share, but let's say they own 10,000 shares at $4.50. That's 45,000 in capital gains that this fund manager is passing on to this client. This client didn't sell the fund, didn't mean to capture those gains. It was just passed on from the fund manager on down. This is probably the biggest and most common tax leak that we see, and it's completely unnecessary. If you just own, let's say you love this fund for whatever reason, if you just owned it in an IRA, you would avoid all this. But it's likely each one of these funds is paying out a similar capital gain, and it wouldn't be out of the question to say this person, this client paid 100,000+ in capital gains in 2021. It's just an egregious violation that doesn't need to happen. Okay. The third thing that is a problem with these funds were proprietary to Fidelity, meaning we had to sell everything to transfer the assets out. So proprietary funds only can be held at Fidelity. We had to sell, thank goodness. I mean, it's a blessing and a curse, but a lot of these were at a loss. So it didn't cost the client anything. But if they moved to Pure in 2021, let's say, a lot of these would have been at a gain, and that would have been a potential roadblock. So advisors use proprietary funds, one, to double dip on fees, but two, it makes the relationship a little more sticky, because even if a client was really ticked off, found out they were paying all these embedded fees and were lighting funds on fire through taxes, you would have a tough time moving, just because these are proprietary funds to Fidelity. Okay, so there's all sorts of red flags in here. Moving on to the IRAs. So, at first glance, you might say, okay, not a big deal. They use a balanced fund of funds at Schwab. So this is just basically a fund that owns multiple funds to create a balanced asset allocation. Same thing with this second IRA. And the last one here is a target date fund. Okay, so first let's talk about these balanced funds. I don't like these because it's not obvious what you own, right? Balance can mean different things to different people. And what I saw firsthand was people anchoring to these shortcuts. I'm a balanced investor. I'm a 60-40 investor. That's fine, but I don't think investors fully understand what balance means and the range of potential outcomes. And let me give you an example. So back in 2020, of course, we had the nasty COVID sell-off, right? So spring 2020, the S&P fell 35% in 30 days or something like that. Look how these balanced portfolios acted. Okay, so this is the Schwab Balanced, I forget what this is called, market track balanced. I don't know what that means. Most people don't either. This fund was down 22%. Okay, so when you anchor to these shortcuts, these balanced 60-40 investor type portfolios, and you don't understand that negative 20% is a potential outcome, that could be a problem. That could cause you to make an emotional decision. And I saw it firsthand. So be careful when you're identifying to an arbitrary tagline, because you need to fully understand what you're getting into, where your risk exposures are, what your mix of stocks to bonds or other assets is. It's not clear at all when I look at this how I'm investing. And then target date funds, so I threw this fund in here as well. It's the same deal. So if someone thought they were being conservative, oh, I'm going to retire in 2025, that must be a conservative portfolio. Well, this would tell a different story. It might be conservative, but it might not be. And by the looks of it, this is behaving more like a 60-40 or a 70-30 portfolio, 60% stocks and 40% bonds, as opposed to a portfolio that a client buys thinking it's conservative because they're retiring in 2022. So a lot of these target date funds have gotten sued. They misled investors coming into the financial crisis. A lot of them were taking more equity risk than they let on. A lot of people didn't understand what they owned, and they just got absolutely wrecked. You could argue a similar thing is going on. So long story short, don't anchor to weird identities. Understand what you own. Understand how much risk that you're taking. Okay, so this is the other taxable account. There's an inherited IRA. Let's just focus on this one. I mean, this one's a dumpster fire of mutual funds. I call this a mutual fund salad. Again, you have no clue what you own here. These fancy sounding names don't make it obvious how much risk you're taking or how much equities that you own. But to me, and this is par for the course for a lot of advisors too. They just stuff a bunch of mutual funds in there. But this one is pretty gross. Taxable again. So we're running into high cost funds. We're running into the same capital gains issues. And this one has an extra bonus, and I'm being sarcastic. It's an A-share mutual fund. So for the privilege of buying this client had to pay up to 5.75% upfront. Okay. So if I'm investing $1,000, the broker that sold me this garbage gets 5.75% of that upfront today, and only $940 something actually gets invested. So they take 5% right off the top, which is egregious. Like, you don't have to do that. That's so they get paid. There's no value add. There's no secret investment sauce, or this is going to outperform an equivalent fund that doesn't have this A-share load. It's just nonsense. It's a way for salespeople to get paid. So not only are you paying that upfront load, you're paying, and okay, so I misspoke a little bit. The maximum initial sales charge is not 5.75, it's 5.5%. So when you see this A next to your mutual fund, know that you're paying upfront, and know that there's an equivalent fund, same exact fund, that doesn't have that load. Exact same investments, exact same fund name, that doesn't have this load. This is just so your salesperson masquerading as a trusted advisor can get paid. In addition to this load, once your funds are invested, you pay almost 1% a year to own that fund. That doesn't include your advisor fee. So if you're at this firm right here, at Jones, you're probably paying north of 1%. You're paying sales loads, you're paying trading fees, you're paying embedded mutual fund expenses, and the same issue with the capital gains are going to show up. So let's look at the distributions. Is this, okay, tax. Okay, so this is capital gains here. So this is last year, year 2021. This client paid $3.73 a share in capital gains. So let's say I owned 100 shares. For each share, I would have to pay $3.73 in realized capital gains. So $373 per 100 shares. Completely unnecessary. You don't have to pay that. And it all stems from owning mutual funds in a taxable account. So they're getting hit multiple ways here. I mean, this is just, I mean, investing is hard enough. This is running a race with your shoes tied together with a blindfold on. It's just impossible to jump over a hurdle like this every single year. This is good for the advisor, not so good for the client. Okay, so I really take satisfaction when we rescue clients from advisors with bad intentions, and they might not even have bad intentions. A lot of it is either ignorance, they're drinking the corporate Kool-Aid, or greed. So, advisor might know what they're doing. This is how they get paid. This is how they put food on the table. Incentives drive human behavior. And in a lot of these big firms, they're incentivized to sell. They've got this matrix of products that they need to sell, and they're just filling the buckets. So they're using their clients to fill these buckets. I have to sell X amount of proprietary funds. I have to generate X amount in commissions. Hence, I'm going to use these A shares and get this upfront sales load. I need to generate X amount in revenue. So I'm going to use these fund families that provide me kickbacks, so the management fee. So, I talked about this 0.85%. 0.85%. A lot of advisors will get a kickback from the fund company for using their funds, and it's not transparent. It's not above board. It's not on your statement. So there's all these little things where they can just milk you. And if you're not paying attention, your advisor might be a great person, but there's just so many different ways that non-fiduciary advisor salespeople can fleece their clients. So Bush, my friend, you've got some work to do. The good news, it's never too late to make a change. A lot of this is easily cleaned up, but it starts with really digging in and understanding incentives, how your advisor's compensated, your all-in cost of investing. And if you're curious, if you're working with an advisor and they're not forthright with this stuff, or it doesn't make sense, feel free to reach out to Pure Portfolios. We are happy to dissect this. Even if you don't decide to work with Pure and you leave a not so wholesome advisor, we would consider that a victory. Okay. So I appreciate you tuning in. Thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any questions or feedback. Thanks.